Welcome to the Ames Public Library's virtual space for the first of Genealogy Plus for this year. The program is brought to you through a partnership with the Ames Public Library and the Story County Genealogical Society. I am Megan Klein-Hewitt, the Adult Services Manager for Ames Public Library, and we have Mary Lohr with us today presenting by various titles: Keeping Genealogy Affordable or Economical Ways to Do Genealogy Research, depending on what your source is. I have a lot of technical information to share, which is unusual. So we will be muting your microphones during the presentation. So please submit any questions that come up for you into the chat function, which you should be able to find at the bottom of your screen, sort of in the center where it says chat. And I will be monitoring that throughout the presentation and butting in with those questions for Mary as is appropriate. We are recording today's session. You may have noticed when I started recording it. It will be posted to the APL YouTube channel and also on the SCGS website. So if you know somebody who wasn't able to attend today, or you just want to go back and review the content, it'll be there for you. If you do get bumped out of the meeting, just follow back that link that you got from the original email from the library, and I will let you back in. And I will drop the link to the Genealogy Plus page into the chat. So if you didn't follow that link from the email that you received, the handout for Mary's presentation is there. And that second link in the chat is the one directly to her presentation. You can also find this year's Genealogy Plus brochure at that Genealogy Plus page link. So that's a great way to learn about the other programs that are coming. And all of the programs are listed there on the site, which makes it super easy to find and register for future sessions. So with that, I will pass it on to Mary.
Thank you, Megan, and thanks to the Ames Public Library for co-sponsoring this. We have always appreciated your technical skills, and we hope to be back in the library soon, but until then, we'll just meet virtually. This morning's presentation is Keeping Genealogy Affordable, or How Not to Empty Your Wallet While You're Trying to Find Your Ancestors. My email is maryjlohr@gmail.com. If you have questions after the presentation, you can email me. I'm always glad and willing to try to answer some questions. So we'll go through these. I want to talk a little bit about the principles behind what I call affordable genealogy before we get started in the specifics. The first one is be honest and ethical at all times. Don't misinterpret something or take advantage of others. Another big one is to respect copyright and the terms of service agreements if you sign on to a subscription or other database. For example, sometimes you'll see on Facebook groups, they will not allow, someone will ask a question about, can somebody look, I don't have a subscription to Ancestry, can somebody look this up for me and post the results? Well, technically, that's probably not allowed. Or a newspaper thing, you might say it's in the, you might quote the source of where you found it. But anyway, read the terms of service for that. And try to give genealogy a good name. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Help others, share generously. Try to just give genealogy a good name. Don't take advantage of others. Don't try to be a cheapskate at the expense of other persons. For example, let's say that I have a daughter in Denver, and let's say that I decided we would just share an Ancestry subscription. Well, that's not in the terms of service, and if Ancestry finds that out, you could lose your subscription. So read the terms, be honest, and I'm going to assume these principles in the things that I'm talking about in this presentation. Let's talk about where to begin. First of all, one of the best things you can do to avoid losing your data is back up your data. In other words, that means multiple copies in multiple locations. Don't trust just an online site to be the only source of your information of all the research you've put in. Make sure that you have, as some people say, it's the LOCKS principle, lots of copies keeps stuff safe. It's a double S at the end. But in other words, you would have paper copies, you would have electronic copies dispersed in various locations, because if you keep it on a flash drive or a external hard drive by your computer and you have a house fire, everything could be gone. So if you have backups, you're not likely to lose it, and that saves not only frustration but a lot of money in having to try to recuperate. Another thing is collaborate with other genealogy researchers. You're not a lone wolf. Other people have the same ancestors you do, at least going back several generations. So that's another way that you can cut down on some of the expense. And the other thing is, if you're organized, it saves time, money, and frustration. Sometimes people end up retracing their steps simply because they didn't note what they had in the first place. So I'm going to talk about materials, research, education, and resources. So with that in mind, let's talk about software for recording your genealogy and your research. There is, I've listed Roots Magic Essentials, Legacy Family Tree, Ancestral Quest, all have free versions. They also have a paid version. And the paid version usually has more bells and whistles. But in the beginning, if you download the simplified version, I'll call it, of these, they work perfectly well. And if you're just starting out, you're not going to want all the high-end parts anyway. Usually the full version of the software maybe is between $30 and $50 for a one-time purchase, and you usually get free upgrades until they release a completely new version. Then you probably will get a discount on the second one. Ancestral Quest is not as well known, but that's a really good one for people who have used a software that was formerly very popular called Personal Ancestral File, or PAF. So it's built on the same foundation. Anyway, any of those are good. And then there's also one called Gramps. That is what's called open source, and it's completely free. So you don't have to buy that at all. It's a little bit of a learning curve for it, but if you like that kind of thing and are a little challenged, that's a good one. And then I've got a link there called GenSoft Reviews. Those are user submitted reviews of genealogy software. So if you're not sure what to use, and there are actually hundreds of them there on that site, and the handout lists some other sources for software reviews. So take a look. Now, the ones I've mentioned are for Windows software. I'm not very familiar with Mac or Apple products. Theirs is Herodotus and Legends, I believe. But if you go to GenSoft Reviews and just put in that you want the Macintosh operating system, you'll be all set. That'll take care of that. Let's talk about keeping your computer safe. Some type of antivirus software is highly recommended. Here are the 3 A's: Avast, AVG, and Avira. Those are all free sources, free software. Again, they have a paid version, but the free versions work fairly well. Microsoft has a version which has been upgraded and is more highly rated than previous versions, so that's another possibility. But anyway, take a look at these, and I've got sources in a handout for where you can read about different software, various forms of the free software. Make sure that you reevaluate your software every maybe 10 to 12 months, because this year maybe Avast is highly rated. Then next year, maybe it's not so good and it's in another ranking lower. So be open to switching out your software. I will tell you though, only run one version of software at a time. Otherwise they could conflict on your computer and cause problems. So with that, but anyway, between the free software, you should be able to pretty much safeguard your computer and thus your research. Also, there's something else called Malwarebytes, and that is, you could run that along with your antivirus software. The free version will, not on demand, but when you run a scan, it will pick up not only antivirus, but all the other kinds of bugs and ugly stuff can really mess up your system. There is a paid version, but again, there is also a free version. So you can look at these things and see which one suits your needs best. But again, if your computer gets messed up and that's where you've got a copy of your genealogy software, you don't want to lose it. So thus, investing in decent antivirus software is well worth your time. Okay, let's talk about something for word processing. There's an open source, absolutely wonderful suite called LibreOffice, which is completely compatible with Microsoft Works. And if you've paid for Microsoft Works, you know it's a pricey thing. So I never have used Microsoft Works. The LibreOffice suits my needs just fine. There's another one called OpenOffice, which is also very good. And another one that I use is just Google Drive because it's free. And Google has a complete set of tools, if you want to call it that. It has a spreadsheet, word processor, and even this presentation is actually was done in Google Slides, not PowerPoint, because I don't have Microsoft PowerPoint. So, but it's compatible and it looks basically the same. But give those a try. Again, they're free. There's another one that I have not used, but it's called Jstor, which I believe there's something called the Golden Genealogist, has a complete series of genealogy for Jstor. So you can look into that. But anyway, you don't need to. The idea is there are a lot of free items that you can use, the software, the antivirus, and your word processing package that you don't even have to invest a cent in. So let's talk about research. Best thing is your library and knowledgeable librarians. So right now that's not quite accessible to us in terms of in person, but you can use your library to check out books, magazines when they're open, but you can also check out many books now through the Ames Public Library. It's through a request system, and then they'll put them on hold for you and you can pick them up. So that part is available. However, something available 24/7 is access to library databases. And at the Ames Public Library, we're fortunate to be able to access Family Search, which they're an affiliate library. We can access Ancestry, the library edition from home for the duration while the library is not fully open. There are newspapers, there are Heritage Quest, there's so many things. So take a look. If you don't live in the central Iowa area, take a look at your local library's website and see what's available. And even though you might not think of something as a genealogy tool, it might still be accessible to you. For example, a newspaper website. So take a look, and if you have to, just email your librarian or pick up the phone and call them to see what's available. Also, Ancestry.com, in addition to being right now, the library edition is almost always available to people who have an account, a library card, I should say. But if you don't have the access that way, there's another thing you can do with Ancestry.com. And this is something that I'm surprised that more people don't know about. You can get a guest account at Ancestry. And this is not the same as a 2-week free trial. There's no credit card involved with this one. And I think it's a really good one. What you do is you sign up for the guest account, and I have the link in the handout. And you will have access to I think it's like here I say 800. I think it's more like 1,800 free databases. Now, they are mostly indexes, but at least you can do your preliminary searching. The other thing you can do is you can search not only Ancestry, but myheritage.com, Find My Past. Go ahead and search, do your search, and you might have to, again, establish a free account on those. But you can see abbreviated results, and then at least you know if they have what you might be looking for. Now, there's another caveat which you can do. If you have the guest account, they don't call it a free account, they call it a guest account in Ancestry. What you could do is do your preliminary searching at home and then use the library edition to explore the results. Of course, now you can just use the library edition for the time being, but when that goes away and is no longer available from home, you could then go to the library and actually do your research. And by the way, when I talk about Ancestry, but there are other databases too, which are very useful. And I'm just more familiar with Ancestry. How do you find genealogy records? I'm talking about vital records primarily and census records. Vital records being birth, marriage, and death, and also census records. Well, good place to start is at our good friend Google, and there are so many things. I could do a whole presentation on just Google search itself, but you know, I'm just going to say, become a Google search expert. There are YouTube videos, there are how-tos of how to do your search and see what is best available. DuckDuckGo.com, another search engine, but it doesn't track your results. So if you want a little more privacy and the results not tailored quite so much individually, that's another search. The US Gen websites, just absolutely amazing. That is a set of volunteer websites. It's organized by country and then by state and then by county. Story County, Iowa has an excellent website. So for example, if you are looking to do research in Story County, that's a good place to start. Other counties are probably not quite so good in some cases. Again, it's a volunteer thing and volunteers come and go, but it's a good place to start. Linkpendium doesn't get a lot of exposure, but the links are constantly maintained and updated. The website's not fancy, but take a look at that to see if there's links to some records you may not have been aware. And of course, Cindy's list is a categorized list of genealogy websites by subjects, kind of like a big subject catalog, if you will. And it's completely free. The links might not all be free that it goes to, but at least the category of them. And Cindy, blanking on her last name, but she keeps that list updated too. So let me go back to and talk just a little bit about Google. I think you know about Google Books. Oh my, Google Patents. Just take a look at that and be open to it. But a Google search is a great place to start by inputting the name of the person you're looking and the location. You may or may not find something, but I think just the phrase, well, just Google it, is something we're hearing more these days. Let's talk a little bit about education and learning. There's so much that if you are paying for genealogy learning, make sure you're getting your money, because there's so much available free that I would start with the free stuff and then go on to explore something more in depth. One of the best ways is through the podcasts, and the ones listed here are also free. There's something called Genealogy Gems Podcasts by Lisa Louise Cook, and if you have heard her speak, you will find that she makes just a wonderful connection with her audience. So I think that would be something to take a look at her podcast. She does have a premium section. So again, many of these websites have a free version, and then there's a paid version or subscription for more access or in-depth. Either one is good. She has done a series of about 40 some podcasts called Family History Podcasts. That one is literally a how to do genealogy. So if you listen to those, you will hear her walk you through using so many resources that we can't cover today. There's something called Genealogy Gold Podcast, or ancestralfindings.com is actually where you find it. And that is a short how-to updates, probably 10-minute podcast. The Genealogy Gems podcasts tend to go for about an hour, but the Genealogy Gold podcast is probably about 10 minutes. So it's really great to listen to when you just have a short amount of time. There's also one called Family Locket that's done by a mother-daughter team, and it's research like a pro. And they really, I believe at least one of the podcasters, I think maybe the mother is a professional genealogist. At any rate, that is a very good one. There are other ones too that I haven't listed here. There's Extreme Genes, which is once a week, and it's a little bit of a humor. And there's also Genealogy Happy Hour. So any of those are worth listening to, and they should be free. You can listen to them on your computer, or you can download them to your tablet or cell phone or the so-called mobile device and listen to them at your leisure. But they're all pre-recorded. And usually they will have a website with the show notes. Our friend YouTube, which actually is owned by Google, but if you search youtube.com for genealogy or family history and GEDCOM, you will find an endless supply of sources for videos. You can also be more specific, like how do I use, what is a GEDCOM and anything. And I think more of the people doing the education in genealogy are turning to YouTube. So be sure to use that. Ancestry.com has lots of useful videos, so you can go on their site, again, with your guest account, and you can access a lot of their videos. Of course, they're going to be pointing you to their product, and they're going to want to nudge you to get a subscription, but use this stuff first. There, Constant Knox is another one who's on YouTube. She is a very good presenter. Hers don't tend to go too long. Her channel is called Genealogy TV. Take a look at that. She's been putting out very timely videos about once a week. And the other thing I should say, go ahead and sign up for with an email address to be notified when these come out. And that way you kind of keep more up to date of what's actually going on. The Family Search Research Wiki. This is just my favorite place in terms of beginning research. It's like an encyclopedia of genealogy. It's written by very knowledgeable people. It's free. Again, this would take could be a whole hour topic presentation in itself on how to use the wiki. Just some of the highlights are, if you are researching in an area or on a topic that you are not familiar with, if you go here, enter in your search, you can find a lot of information. You'll find links online of which records. For example, if you're researching in Missouri, a lot of their death records are actually online from the early 1900s up to, I'm not sure what the latest year is. But if you didn't know that, they will find, you'll find that out, and you'll find out what's available. So by going to the Research Wiki, it's just a wonderful place to start, or to get information, or to organize it, and to explain maybe a topic that you want to do something on probate, but you have no idea where to start. Go to the Family Search Wiki, do a search for probate, and you're off and running. Ancestry also has a wiki. It's a little more limited, but worthwhile looking at. They have two books that are kind of standards in genealogy. One is called The Source, and the other is called The Red Book. That's available through their wiki. I believe those two books are a little bit more dated, but still very worthwhile. There are so many blogs out there that a lot of genealogists write. One of them is by Dick Eastman. I believe he is weekly except for possibly the weekends. He's cut back just a little bit. But if you want to find out what's new in genealogy and kind of topics, check him out and subscribe to that. And Randy Seaver is another prolific writer with the Geneo Musings. He will talk to you about all kinds of things in education and new databases. Then there's another one which is very interesting and very useful called Family History Daily. And the name is a little bit misleading. It's not daily. I would say they do 2 in-depth articles a month, but it might be something on using Pinterest. It might be something on using the census or a state census or mortality schedules, that kind of thing. So take a look at that and you'll be well informed of what's going on. And of course, webinars. I think we're all familiar with those. There are so many now that it's becoming hard to keep up with so many of them. And they get a little repetitious after a while, but these are also very good. They are Legacy Family Tree, for example, has a weekly one, and they just celebrated their 10th anniversary, I believe. Legacy Family Tree is not associated with the Legacy Genealogy Software. I shouldn't make that distinction. In fact, Legacy Family Tree webinars is now owned by the MyHeritage group. But at any rate, they give a 1-hour webinar every week, and you do have to register in advance, but it's free, offered free for 1 week following the broadcast in case you can't listen to the live version. So you have a week to listen to it. You can subscribe for, I don't know, it's about $50 a year, and you have access to their complete 10-year library of webinars. The Southern California Genealogical Society also offers some timely ones, and you can look at their site for when they are. Then there are some state genealogical societies that offer usually monthly, Georgia, Illinois, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and there probably have others. I believe there's some Florida societies, all offer monthly webinars. You have to register. And if you are a little concerned about giving out your email, here's a trick. Sign up for like a free Google account, Gmail account. You can have multiple accounts and use that just for genealogy. And that way you're not, giving up your privacy so much. So if that's a concern, just establish a new email and use it just strictly for genealogy. So anyway, I think the webinars are becoming quite the thing, particularly in this day and age. Was there a question, Megan?
I don't think so.
Okay, I thought maybe I heard you. So, digitized books. So many have been now online. And especially now during this pandemic, when we're home a little bit more, you might be able to find so many things. One are those old county history books that were popular back in the late 1800s, early 1900s. And what's really cool about those is that sometimes they'll have biographies in the back. And if you're lucky, your family, one of your ancestors paid, and they were paid, to submit their own biography. They're usually with a flourish. If you see these books, and if you just scan through some of the biographies, you will see people say, well, they had the most beautiful farm. He was, through hard work, he did this or that. A little bit grandiose, but again, they're worth looking at. There are family genealogies, there are college yearbooks, and so forth. Those are the kinds of books that have been digitized. You might find them in various places. One is Gen Gophers, and I've got a link there. The Family Search website has a tremendous collection of books, so be sure to check that out. The Internet Archive, again, that can be another presentation for almost an hour. Tremendous source. There are free books there, and Google Books, and the Digital Public Library of America. So when you're looking at all these books, just take a look, especially on Google Books, do a search for the book, put the title in quotation marks, and you might come up with, if the book is not in copyright, you probably can access the whole book. If it is in copyright, you might be able to get a snippet of it. And if you decide you want to see more on the book, you perhaps could obtain it through interlibrary loan. So be willing to do that. So all good sources for free books, or at least access to them. And if you can't find it and you don't want to purchase the book, see if interlibrary loan can get you a copy. Another thing you can do is if you think if you've identified a book that has some information about your family, maybe a marriage record or something, you can, and you find a library that has the book, you can go to worldcat.org and do a search and find the libraries that have the books. And you can sometimes email them, and they may be willing to do a quick lookup for you and scan a page or two. So very worthwhile considering. You know, as genealogists, we sort of have to think creatively at times to get the book information we want to get. Newspapers, they are fantastic sources for earlier information. Again, it's not you have to take what you find and verify it in other places too, but it certainly gives a snapshot of the life of your ancestors in the day. One site is Chronicling America. Those are historic newspapers, and they've been digitized by the Library of Congress. So you can find newspapers up to, I believe, possibly 1924, and almost all the states have some digitized newspapers, so that's a source worth looking into. The Chronicling America website also has an interesting thing. They have a directory of newspapers that have been published in the United States. So what that means is if you're thinking of a small town, say in Illinois, and you don't know what newspapers have been published there, do a search at that directory at the Chronicling America website, and they will give you the title and the dates that the newspaper was in operation. Then you might be, it might have been digitized by Chronicling America if it was, if you're lucky. If not, you might, do a title search in WorldCat to see if you can get other copies of it or from libraries. It possibly could be on microfilm, but at least you can identify the types of newspapers that were published, because around the turn of the century, there was just a proliferation of newspapers published in the United States, particularly in the Midwest. Another site that is absolutely gold for newspapers and lots of other things too, but in particular newspapers, it's called the Ancestor Hunt. And when you do type that into your address bar, be sure to include the word "the." So it's theancestorhunt.com. He had Kenneth R. Marks, who does the site, has links to free digitized newspapers from around the world, and they're organized by country and then by state. So if you want to see what's available online and free, start here. And for example, if you're researching in Ames, Iowa, or Story County, you can search for Iowa and then by county. And when you go to Story County, you'll see that the newspapers for the Ames Tribune and its earlier titles, earlier versions of it, are available at the Ames Public Library, and you can access those for free. I mean, what couldn't be better? And the old newspapers are just, they're funny in some ways to read. They were very opinionated. Things were not always unbiased, but you will find sources for probate records, school records, birth, marriage, and death, all kinds of things. So newspapers are just a treasure. So also keep in mind, this ancestor hunt, look over to the left, or I'm sorry, on the right of the website, and you will find links to for finding photographs, census records, birth, marriage, and death records, all kinds of things. He's adding so many things, and he updates the site all the time, so worthwhile. Those two sources are really good places to start for newspapers. And from there, you'll find other links. Cemeteries. Yes, we like cemetery records and death records. I think many people are familiar with the Find a Grave website. I think that's probably the most well-known, which is extremely worthwhile. Just keep in mind that information on a tombstone may or may not be accurate. Sometimes the wrong information was given to the person engraving it, and sometimes they made a mistake and it couldn't be corrected. In fact, we have a case in Story County where a gravestone was placed in the 1870s. It was replaced sometime about 1950 when they did some work on this small cemetery, and they put the wrong name on it. So we were able to prove through other records that that name was not correct, and so they did in fact correct it. So again, don't rely just on the tombstone, but it's a wonderful source, and sometimes you'll find obituaries and other things people have submitted. Another site is Billion Graves, worthwhile, a little bit less individual, but more easy for locating. Interment.net is another one, and Soldiers and Sailors database, and the Nationwide Gravesite Locator, and that's for veterans' graves. So if your person you're researching was served in the military, check that site and they may be able to locate it. So those are just some for death records. Oh wow, we have Facebook. Facebook has been a boon to genealogists. There's a lot of negative things you can say about Facebook and so forth, but if you want to just use it for genealogy, I think you'll find you won't be disappointed, and you can get past the cute cat videos and so forth. These are some sites that I recommend. The Organized Genealogist has lots of help on how to organize all your material. The Random Acts of Genealogy Kindness is a place to submit a lookup for someone to take a picture. If you want a picture of your ancestors' tombstones, but they're in a cemetery halfway across the country, just take a look. There's one called Frugal Genealogy, which certainly fits in with this topic. Full disclosure, I'm an administrator of this group, but I do highly recommend it. Just answer the 3 questions and to be admitted if you're interested. There's something called Ancestry Helpers. And then another one so popular is called Genealogy Squad. And that is run by the same people who do the Genealogy Guys podcast, and Cindy Inkle from Cindy's List. So they kind of run a tight ship. There's no nonsense, but at any rate, that's worthwhile. Those are things to consider. You can, on Facebook, probably you will want to join Facebook groups and just do a search on Facebook for genealogy, and you'll get more than you have time to even think about. But again, pare it down to those that are helpful to you. Another thing is take a look at pages and groups of Facebook that are in the area where you're researching. For example, if you're researching in Charlotte, North Carolina, do a Facebook search for that in genealogy, because there might be a group dedicated just to the genealogy resources for people in that area. So, and again, Facebook is free, and you can also get a lot of collaboration. Another thing you could do is even start your own Facebook group for your family, and then invite other people who are researching in your family to join it, and you can exchange ideas. And that goes back to the collaboration that I mentioned earlier. It's a great way to share photographs. I have started one for one branch of my family, and it's an international one now. We have some people in Canada. And what happens is somebody will post a picture and say, I know that the person on the left is such and such, but can somebody identify the other people in the photo? And by golly, they get it and say, oh, we have that photo, and this is so and so. And it's a great way to share stories and connect. So don't write off Facebook just because you think it's kind of for the younger people. It's also for us genealogists. Anyway, so I mentioned to find the search feature to find other groups and pages. Another way, fairly easy, is to go to Catherine Wilson's site. She has over 400 pages and 16,000 links just on genealogy alone. And it's grouped by category. So if you look at that site, I think you'll again find so many genealogists. A lot of family groups and family associations are forming Facebook groups and pages. And then finally, Thomas McKenty has a website called genealogybargains.com. And somehow he is able to negotiate special deals sometimes with the big players in the genealogy. And he kind of has the latest inside scoop on what's, when Ancestry is going to offer this or that database for free, or MyHeritage has this or that collection available, or they'll have special discounts or special bargains. So take advantage of that. But I would take a look at his website, and he has a Facebook group too, a link to it. So that will keep you informed on what resources are available. Another thing, sign up for email alert and news from genealogy companies and publishers. That way you'll know. They always want you to subscribe, of course, but if you set up another email account with just that, you won't have that in with your regular email, and you can get your email alerts and news from that way. And also sometimes these companies will announce things on Twitter if you're into that. So it's a good way to kind of catch the latest. And a couple of other things, keep a wish list. And with the holidays coming up, or an anniversary or a birthday, and somebody asks you what you want, genealogy, here, gosh, I would love this or that. Maybe it's a book, or maybe it's a subscription, or some other materials that you want. So why not ask for genealogy stuff? So again, I've offered some suggestions, but you have to decide what's right for you. For some people, they're not going to subscribe to something, and there's no need to necessarily. But decide what's right for you. As genealogists, we love things that are free, but we know everything cannot be free. There is an expense to the companies having to provide server space to store the records, to digitize them. So all of that costs money, and again, we can't expect it to be free. But the idea of being frugal means that the money that you do spend is wisely spent. So you think about what you want and plan and figure out what's going to work for you. Here's something that I have found out lately that has really been beneficial. It's a site called conferencekeeper.org, and it's really a calendar of upcoming genealogy events. And it just seems that right now, with the pandemic around and people at home more, there are so many things online, and many of them are free, some are not. But this is a case where, this is how you can find out what is available. So take a look at conferencekeeper.org, and especially it's where it says online events here. That one, yeah, online events here. You might find, I was able to sign up for a webinar from a library in Florida last week. And, it wouldn't have been on my radar, but I found it on listed here. So another site that's useful. A couple of other tricks that some people have mentioned: if you're shopping on Amazon and you've got a book in your cart, is to leave it in your cart for a few days, and sometimes you'll get better offers on it. I think I've tried this, not with genealogy stuff, with the other material that I kind of want it and wasn't sure I want it. But if they think you're going to buy it, but you don't buy it right away, they sometimes will give you a better offer. So it's, a little trick. With Amazon, you can sometimes redeem other gift cards. There's also an extension that you can add to your browser called Honey, Honey, which will shop for the best values if there's a lower price available or a coupon code. Again, these are little tricks that don't necessarily apply to genealogy, but why not apply them, you know, to further your money? If you can get more mileage from your dollar, hey, that's more money to spend on genealogy, right? So that in summary is kind of what I have to say. There are other ways you can go, but this is what I have to offer, and I think this will get you started. So if there are any questions or comments or discussion, I welcome that.
Yeah, I have unmuted you all if you choose to unmute yourselves so that you can share whatever questions or comments you might have.
I think when I was starting out as serious genealogist, I thought I had to have every book on the shelf or every new book that came out for genealogy. And you probably know what happened. They ended up sitting on my shelf. Some, you know, you don't, just go slow when you're starting and examine your costs. And I think you can go a long way without spending a great deal of money. But at some point you do, as just with anything else, I mean, any hobby, and I'm going to call genealogy a hobby if it's for most of us it is. It's any hobby is going to cost money at some point. So it's up to you to determine how much you want to spend and where to put your money.
So the one question that we did get was about how you can get access to some of the books on the genealogy reference shelf while the library isn't open fully. That is a challenge, I will admit. We are happy to take photos or scan pages and email them to you if there's something on the shelf specific that you're looking for. If it comes to browsing, that's a little more challenging because we are asking folks to limit their visits to the library right now. But we are happy to help locate potentially other sources that are digital that you can access while the building's closed. As Mary mentioned, both Family Search and Google Books are enormous resources when it comes to being able to find copies of books that are out of copyright. So, and interlibrary loan is an option as well. We weren't doing interlibrary loan for a while, but we have restarted that service. You can have 2 open requests at a time. We can't always get materials for you for free, particularly with genealogy materials and rare materials. Places might charge a fee for copying pages because they won't lend their materials. But I am always happy to dig in and contact libraries to find a source for you if we can find one.
That goes back to the knowledgeable librarians that I mentioned, and I think that's true. In fact, Megan, you copied some material for me that I was looking to fill out, and the library was, you know, is closed, wasn't accessible at that time, and so you copied and scanned a couple pages for me, which I really appreciated.
Yep, always happy to help when we can. So I put our email in the chat. It's webref, like web reference, at amespubliclibrary.org.
Good. So,
I don't know
Mary?
if you,
yes,
Sorry, this is Kitty Fisher.
yes. Kate.
Tell us a little bit more about that Frugal Genealogist Facebook page that you administer.
It's called Frugal Genealogy. So
Okay.
if you sign on to Facebook and go to the search box and just enter Frugal Genealogy as 2 words, you should be able to find it. And then you have to, because it is a group, you have to request membership. And the caveat is there are 3 questions you have to answer. They're very, very simple, but it's to screen out robots and spam. Just answer those, and then I admit to membership just about everybody There are a few questionable characters I've rejected, but nobody listening to this is going to be an objective character. I think the direct link is facebook.com/groups/affordable genealogy. But if that doesn't get it to you, just Frugal Genealogy, not affordable. I guess they're the same. Huh? I don't know. But anyway, Frugal Genealogy is the name.
So what kinds of things do you have on there?
A lot of links to websites and articles and webinars and ideas that different people have for genealogy. It's not really a Facebook group so much for, this is my brick wall. How do I find the death record for my great-grandfather? It's more ways to do it without spending money as the focus of the group.
Great, that was a great question, Kitty. Does anybody else have any questions or things to share?
Hi, this is Donna from California.
Oh, welcome.
So my little tip is, and maybe you mentioned I missed the first 5 minutes, but do some library shopping. Besides just your local library, you might not have databases or things accessible there, but in a lot of states, maybe a larger city has, a few, different databases available from home, and you don't necessarily need to say belong to the Minneapolis library. You just need to be a resident of the state of Minneapolis. And I know in California, I've got I have library cards at like 4 different libraries because different libraries have access to different databases, and they don't care that I don't live in Los Angeles City, but as long as I live in California, I can have a library card. So I just discovered my Carlsbad Public Library has access to 7 different databases, including Genealogy Bank, which is a paid database, and that's one I haven't seen at any other library so far, and American Ancestors, which of course has all the great New England resources, and that one I think is available even beyond pandemic times. So a couple of the databases sometimes are it's just for the duration of the pandemic, but those ones, I thought that was a big find to see that. So.
Oh, yes. Those are great tips, Donna. Thank you for sharing them. And like I say, libraries are your best friend in genealogy. And I think people overlook what they have and don't realize that they have all that material. And you're absolutely right. A lot of those things are limited by state. I know in Wisconsin, you can get access to a lot of materials if you're within the state or a resident, but not across state lines. But you don't know until you try. That's kind of my motto. So see what you can do and access what you can.
And within the state of Iowa, we do have open access. So as long as you live in the state, you can get a library card in virtually any other community in the state of Iowa. So if there's a database out there lurking somewhere, you can probably get access to it by getting a library card for that library. Sometimes it is restricted by where you live. Like I know Des Moines Public Library restricts access to their databases to only Des Moines residents, but many communities do share, like we share. If you have an Ames Public Library card, you can access our online databases anywhere, as long as you have a card.
Well, and I think Heritage Quest, which is a fantastic database, is available throughout Iowa, from what I can tell, and you don't need a library card for that. Is that correct, Megan?
I don't know.
Whenever I use it, I don't need to sign in.
Oh.
And I've tried it when I've been elsewhere in Iowa and can find out. But that gives you access to the census records and a lot of other things. So,
yeah, it's a great resource.
Yeah. So again, you don't know unless you ask and you try.
I've heard mention of Jstor being available during the pandemic, and I don't know much about Jstor. Do either of you?
Megan, can you address that a little more than I can?
So what I know of Jstor is that it is basically a database of journal articles. It tends to be a little bit more academic, but it is pretty wide ranging in what they offer. So I could absolutely see it covering genealogy journals, so like from an academic point of view. I don't know about the free access to it, but I am like 99% certain that Iowa State Library, Parks Library, has access to it. So that might be a place to start. And that's also a good point, that any public university is required to provide some level of access to the public to their databases. So you can always access Iowa State or a public university in your community to get access to those databases. You might have to physically be there to do it, but you can access them as members of the public.
Another great source is the PERSI, P-E-R-S-I, which is the Periodical Source Index. It used to be hosted at the Allen County Public Library. I believe now it's hosted by myheritage.com, but you can search it for free. And those are, it's an index to genealogy journals. And you normally wouldn't search for names of your ancestors. It's more like places and locations. But if you wanted articles about a particular place, you could search for it. And of course, getting the actual article is a little more complicated. That you may have to pay for. You could write to the publisher, and that's another thing. But that's another source if you're wanting to look at that. I think it just goes on and on. It's kind of like in genealogy, you find the answer to one thing and you have two more questions. But it's a great time to be doing genealogy, even though right now we're somewhat limited in our travels to courthouses and such. But you know, you start on Google and you make some phone calls and you write some emails or you write some letters. And not everything's online. You can still, another good source, which a friend of mine who, this was a little bit before the internet became so popular, she was not real comfortable with computers. And she would write to cemeteries, to the sexton, or the office. And she got more information through the years than I could imagine. She was wonderful at that. And they would send her all kinds of, you know, who was buried there, who bought the lot, who paid for the funeral, just a completely in depth. So don't overlook just writing a letter to a place. So, I'll share one other tip. This was on international research, which is another challenge. But I had some ancestry from Liechtenstein, and I was just completely at a standstill to find any records. So I found an address for their archives, and I just sent some basic questions. I got about 10 pages from their archives in the mailbox one day. I was over the moon. So you never know. Ask, research, don't give up. So.
All right. Well, if we don't have any additional questions or resources to share, that was an abundance of information, Mary, and great resources that everyone else shared as well. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.